Hello everybody, Jeff here. This is a Spin Zone video, so welcome. I've got about 9 albums here to show, representing what I've listened to over the past probably 9 to 10 days. And it's a beautiful sunny day as I'm filming this. I'm finally off third shift, thank God. That's always a good thing, and even though I've only got a couple hours sleep, hopefully my eyes aren't too red. I've got my trusty friend here, coffee. So, without further ado, let's jump right in. Today we start with Genesis. Selling England by the Pound is first up here. And my buddy Bill over at the Vinyl Verse just did an just did a video on this album. I'm going to try and talk straight today, guys, but bear with me. He just did a video on this album the other day because this was the 45th anniversary of the release of this album. So this was one of the Steve Hackett signed albums that I got, and I'll probably try to put a link to that video because Bill goes much further in depth than I possibly can. Speaking as a newbie to this album, I mean, I like all of the other Genesis that I've been listening to, I enjoyed this one quite a lot. This one seemed to have more on it that I was familiar with, like I Know What I Like in Your Wardrobe. I know I've heard that many times before. Firth of Fifth, which was one of those songs that I wasn't necessarily sure what the title was, but once I started listening to it, I'm like, oh yeah, I know what that song is. So, very enjoyable listen, as all of the Genesis albums have been so far. So, yeah, I don't really have anything much else to add to this, so I'll put a link to Bill's video about this album. But it's really quite good. And then from there, we're wrapping up the Robin Hitchcock listening that I've been doing. This is his album from 1996 called Mossy Liquor. Now, the last time I showed this album, I referred to this as kind of like an alternate takes version of the album Moss Elixir. Now, while I don't have that album, I really can't compare the two, but this one was just like all of the other Robin Hitchcock albums, with the exception of Groovy Decay, have been very, very enjoyable to listen. This one was a bit odd because they do this. He does the song "All Right, Yeah" in Swedish. I don't know why, but I think on the actual Moss Elixir album, I think it's in English, but Beautiful Queen is a great song, which I'll be mentioning in a couple other records to come. The Devil's Radio, that's a great song. Try the Bite, D Chirico Street. These are all great songs. And, of course, someday I'm sure I'm going to track down Moss Elixir. I hope to, on vinyl. You know, this came out in '96, so that was really the dead time for vinyl. So I'm not sure how or when, but, you know, that'll probably be on my permanent list of things that I'll be wanting to look for. But in the realm of Robin Hitchcock albums, this one stands pretty tall with the rest. Pretty enjoyable. Mossy Liquor. And then we go back to another Genesis album. This was the other one that I bought a couple months back from Steve Hackett's website. I got it signed. This is The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. This is a double album. And I'm not going to try to annoy anyone by what I'm going to say, but this was the first Genesis album that I didn't immediately click with. This is a very dense album. It seems like, and I only listened to it once, You know, I need to listen to this probably a couple more times to really absorb it better. But on first listen, you know, aside from the title track, which I was well familiar with, and what else is on this one? I think Carpet Crawlers on this one. Yeah, I'm familiar with Carpet Crawlers, but it seems like a lot of these songs are just jam-packed with lyrics. It seems like Peter Gabriel was just on fire writing lyrics for this. But and it's a concept album. You know, it's a bit heavier. Like I said, it's a bit denser listen. You know, if when we're going back to the theme of talking about, you know, how you listen to records, I think in due time I'm gonna have to go back to this one and really focus on it and give it a good, thorough, several more listens to probably really get it. It's not that I disliked it, not at all, and it's a great sounding album. But, you know, it wasn't one of those things where you can just kind of sit back and relax. You have to really kind of actively listen to it because there's a lot going on here. So, I liked it, didn't love it, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So, this will be one that I'll be coming back to in the future. The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway by Genesis. Good, but to me, not great yet. That's all. They can't all be winners, right, guys? Not that this is a loser album. It's not, but you get what I'm trying to say. All right, I need another drink of coffee here. Bear with me. Okay. Don't want to sound like a broken record. Ha ha ha. Here's another Robin Hitchcock. I told you I was on fire with this guy. This is the soundtrack to his movie. Am I gonna upload this video? I don't know. We're gonna see. I'm gonna have to think about this one because I can't talk today. This is the soundtrack to his film Storefront Hitchcock, which I still have not seen. I need to find this. I'm sure it's available somewhere. But this was a lot of the material of this music for this album comes from the aforementioned Moss Elixir / Mossy Liquor album. Like I said, the album Closer is a really great version of Beautiful Queen, which I really, really liked. He covers The Wind Cries Mary, which I guess was a song that was in his live repertoire for a very long time, and it's really good. I mean, he's no Jimi Hendrix, but he takes it in a different direction. The Yip song, which is funny. And All Right, Yeah, he plays that, which in English, which is kind of nice. I could understand all the words. And in between each song, almost every song, he talks to the audience. So it's pretty nice. And it was just him playing guitar and accompanying himself. On a couple tracks, he's got a violin and a second guitar on a few. But for the most part, this is just Robin solo accompanying himself on guitar. And for a double live album, it was really quite enjoyable. This came out in 1998. So I was very happy to get this one. Like I said, mid to late 90s vinyl is pretty hard to come by, so this is one of the more treasured albums in my collection, especially my Robin Hitchcock collection. So as just a general overview of his career up to this point, it's pretty good. And this copy is almost like new, so it sounded really great. Funny story, well, funny laughing at me is how stupid I am. About midway through this album, it seemed like the sound really started going down, like, and the copy itself looks like it's in mint condition, and I'm like, what the hell is wrong with this record? It's sounding very fuzzy and screechy, and why is it doing this? And it turns out I had a big wad of dust on my stylus. I normally clean my stylus, you know, fairly regularly. I've got one of those little brushes and I gently, you know, brush it, try to keep it clean, but obviously I hadn't done it for a little while, and it built up literally to the point where it made the sound quality of the record go down. So once I cleaned my stylus and I played it some more, everything was fine. I know. What can I say? Okay. This next album I showed recently. This was one of my contest winnings that I purchased. I Am the Cosmos by Chris Bell. And boy, man, what can I say about this album? Listening to this really made me kind of sad because this is almost a perfect album. For all intents and purposes, this is a perfect album. And knowing, you know, a little bit of Chris Bell's story, you know, he was a member of Big Star. He was in the band for their first album. And listening to this, it's almost like a direct sequel to that first album by Big Star, and it really showcases Chris Bell's contribution to the Big Star sound. Boy. But it made me sad because, you know, he died in a car accident in 1978, I think not long after this came out. And man, it makes me sad that this is the only album by him that we're going to get. This is so damn good. I mean, the title track I already was in love with because I had the 45, the Record Store Day 45 of I Am the Cosmos. But listening to the rest of this album, it's very, very Big Star-ish. Very easy to see, you know, what he contributed to that band and that album and their sound. But man, this is another one of those records where as soon as it was over, you know, I listened to it the first time, got to the end of the second side, and then I just turned it back over and played it again from the beginning. And I've only done that, you know, with a handful of albums on first listen. But boy, oh boy, I can't talk about this. I can't recommend this album highly. And it's easily available on Amazon. I think it's only like 15 or 16 bucks. I thought I ordered the clear version, but for some reason Amazon sent me the black vinyl version. And it didn't come with a download card. I thought I ordered the only one that I saw available was on clear vinyl and it came with a download card. But this copy is obviously black vinyl and it didn't, because I'm going to have to try to track a digital version of this album down and put it on my iPod so I can listen to this wherever I go. I Am the Cosmos by Chris Bell. Fantastic album. And if you like Big Star and you don't have this album, get it. It's easily available on Amazon. So, yeah. Can't recommend that one enough. That's probably, of this bunch that I'm showing, that's probably my very favorite. And last but not least, the last Robyn Hitchcock album that I will be showing. Yay! This was the other record that I bought for my contest winnings. This is his most recent album. It's self-titled, Robyn Hitchcock. And I'd heard this album, a few tracks online I found on YouTube, I streamed. And like I said, I wanted to have a physical copy. I think I showed the gatefold on this last time. And yeah, this is a great album. It doesn't have like the heavy psych sound that I kind of expected, you know, judging by the design of this album cover. But the songs themselves are really, really good. Autumn Sunglasses was one of my favorites, and I think that one is on YouTube. I think there's a video of that. Somebody uploaded that one. 1970 in Aspect, that's another great one. Mad Shelley's Letterbox, I Want to Tell You About What I Want. These are all great songs. And uh, I I don't have. There's a big gap in my Robin Hitchcock. Basically, from Storefront Hitchcock that came out in '98 to this one, I don't have anything in between. So, um, and I'm pretty sure a lot of those records aren't even available on vinyl. So, I think if I'm going to go any further with the Hitchcock discography, I'm going to have to invest in some CDs. But that'll be for later on down the road. For now, this really was a nice capper to my listening project for Robin Hitchcock albums. So thank you for bearing with me and sitting through so many of these, as I basically say the same thing about them, except for the one. But this is another one that's easily available on Amazon. If you wanted to dip your toe in the Robin Hitchcock catalog, this wouldn't be a bad place to start, actually. Self-titled. This came out, I think, in 2017. So this one's also highly recommended too. And this would be, like I said, very easy to acquire should you so choose. So, all right, we are done with Robin Hitchcock. Okay, we've got 3 more albums here. And I have to say, with this next one, I'll just show it. This is another reissue by Susie and the Banshees. This one is called A Kiss in the Dream House. And I have to say, the reissue series of these albums has been drawing me in. I picked up a Tinderbox about a month ago, and I was, because I wanted to have a physical copy of that. That's kind of the same thing with this album. Whoops. Show you the back here. Slow Dive was the single, I think the first single off of this album. And there was another song called Melt, which I was already familiar with. So I already knew, 2 of these songs. And like I say, I'm a fan of Susie and the Banshees. Don't see them at all on Facebook. Hardly at all. And these reissues are quality, I have to say. They're pressed in Germany, because there's always a big Made in Germany sticker on the back of these albums when I open them up. So, like I said, the pressing quality is there. It's on 180 gram vinyl. Remastered from the original analog tapes at Abbey Road Studios. And you can easily see in the dead wax, because it has Miles at Abbey Road Studios, room, whatever, like 30 or something. So, overall, I really enjoyed this album too. This came out in 1982. Yeah, it has a slightly dated sound to it, but this is a little more of an ethereal type of sound for them on this album. It's a little more varied than what I've heard of their other songs. And I listened to this on headphones too, so it sounded great. And I can't really say anything bad about it. Other than that, my wallet may get hit a couple more times, because there's a couple more albums that are kind of interesting me that have been reissued recently too. So you may see more of these in the future, but for right now, A Kiss in the Dream House by Susie and the Banshees is what I picked up. Very good listen. Fan of this band, and it's great. Then I listened to the Vault package that I got last week. This is Jack White live at Third Man Records. I showed this when I opened it, and it's got I had the pictures and all the other stuff kept with it. And upon listening, it's a great live album. Jack White is a great live performer. This album consists of appearances at both the Nashville and Detroit Third Man locations. So there is some repetition with some of the tracks, which, is okay. This is a triple album, and the first 2 records are his show at Nashville, and the third one is the one he made at Detroit. So, you know, there's some overlap there. A lot of these songs are newer, you know, off of his Boarding House Reach album, which wasn't my favorite among, you know, Jack White albums. It was kind of the first album by him that I didn't automatically love right off the bat. Kind of like that Genesis Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. It's probably something I'm going to have to go back to if I want later on, and I'm going to have to try to, you know, absorb it a little bit fully, a little more fully. So, but the pressing was quality. You know, I had no issues with that. And it sounds good. I mean, I'd love to see him in person someday, live. But I've got so many so many live appearances by him. I feel like I've seen him 1,000 times already. But someday. He's kind of on my bucket list to see live someday. So this was a good listen. It's nice to have. It's heavy. It's heavy having 3 180-gram records all in one shot, so I need 2 hands holding this thing up. But Jack White live at third, man, it was good, you know. And last but not least, because I'm over 20 minutes now, so we're going to try to wrap this up, we move on from Robin Hitchcock to XTC. I ended up listening to this the other day before I had a chance to make this video. I was going to just cut it off and start fresh with XTC on my next spin zone, but the timing of it didn't work out that way, so I spun this one. I didn't want to wait anymore. It's called White Music. It's their first album. As you can see, This Is Pop is the big single off of this album, probably the most recognizable song. This was when XTC was a 4-piece band. The first couple albums, they had other members in it besides just Andy Partridge and Colin Moulding. Besides This Is Pop, Radio's in Motion, that was a great song. X-Wires, they cover All Along the Watchtower, and they do an interesting cover of that song. Adam Age, that's another probably easily identifiable song by them. Yeah, this is a lot different than the XTC that I kind of knew and love later on in their career. There's a ton of energy on this album. This came out in 1978. You know, probably I think they got lumped into like that punk / new wave scene type of genre. Rightfully so. I mean, I would probably call this more power pop or even power punk if there is such a thing. But every song is very herky-jerky. It's very, you know, a lot of stuttering guitars, a lot of fast singing, a lot of just up-tempo. It reminds me a lot of, like, Joe Jackson's first 2 albums. You know, it's got that very... You want to pogo around while you're listening to this. which is a far cry from, like, the Baroque pop masterpieces that they would put out later in their career, like, say, from Skylarking on. So, I'm not as familiar with early XTC. I really like this album, though. I'm not saying it's bad, I'm just saying it's different. You know, they started in one place, and over time, they moved to another. They're one of those bands that, you know, grew and evolved and adapted their sound. So, this is just the beginning. I've got like 7 more studio albums by them to listen to, plus an EP, plus the Dukes of Stratosphere full-length album. So basically everything from this through Oranges and Lemons will be showing up on these spin zones here in the near future. The only one I'm leaving off is Skylarking because I've shown that one many times before, listened to it many times before, I'm well familiar with it, and I probably won't make that a part of this listening project, but everything else besides that from 78 to 89 I'm going to cover. So this is the starting point. White Music by XTC. This is a great album. Can't really say anything bad about it. So it took me a very long time to acquire the run that I wanted to. And because of my OCDs, I didn't really listen to any of them until I had them all. I'm nuts that way. What can I say? So now that I've got everything that I wanted to get, now we're going to start listening to them. Much in the same fashion as Robyn Hitchcock. I'm probably going to be alternating these with other albums to keep it a little fresher and keep it a little more variety. Because I don't want to burn out. I certainly don't want to burn out on these guys. And alternating albums like I did with Hitchcock seem to help with that a lot. So that's probably going to be the plan for the near future. And that's it. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you for making it to the end. Thank you for listening to me babble. And there will be more XTC to come. Okay, guys. Hope everyone is doing well. I'm supremely jealous, but I'm just kidding. I'm very, very happy for Brad, H2 Vinyl. Check out his 2 videos showcasing his winnings from Andrew's contest. It's an unbelievable prize package. It's probably the best, probably the biggest and best curated prize package that I've ever seen. So I'm super happy for you. Every single record that Brad showed, I'm just like, so check those out too. Check out the Vinyl Verse. He's the big Genesis guy. I'll put a link to that video about that album. And yeah, everybody take care. Love you all. Thanks for watching, like I said. Peace. And I'll see you soon.